Yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's get started. Starting with a small presentation. This doesn't contain much. This is just to see the outline. So first, yeah, today's topic is JavaScript. So in the previous weeks, we were looking at HTML and CSS. We just went through the core basics. Uh, I think those would be enough, but JavaScript is something which is much more important than those. Those are needed too. Those are needed, of course, but JavaScript is much more important uh, when we need to do some actions in the browser. So previously, what we were using is just to display the content and style the content. Now we are going to bring some interactivity with the user using JS. So and yeah, let's get started. So first, for a simple definition, what is JavaScript? So JavaScript actually is a object-oriented language. We will talk about what is object-oriented in the future. So the things which are not much complicated, I'll explain it now. But while going, we'll be getting to know those stuffs. Those are definitely needed. So, and it is a dynamically typed scripting language, which is the only language that is on the web right now, which means that you're having your browser. So everything that you see in your browser, there is an underlying layer which is using JavaScript. So all the browsers are using only JavaScript, and there is no other language which is in anywhere near replacing it, not even in the near future, or maybe even after 10 to 20 years. I don't think so. Yeah, but there are different technologies which are trying to come up in the latter. But yeah, JavaScript is still ruling the web. And JavaScript is not only for browsers, it can do much more, which is, we'll see in the next slide. So ECMAScript, so it is called as ECMAScript. You will be hearing about this word quite often, but people get confused of what it is. I'm just going to explain what ECMAScript is. So as you can see here, ECMAScript is a language specification created for a dynamic programming language. So ECMAScript is just a guide which will help you to create your own programming language, which is going to be a dynamic language. We'll see about what dynamic is in after a few slides. As of now, just remember it. This is just a language specification. It's like how the language should look like. It's just giving the format of how the language should look like and what features should it have. That is what ECMAScript has. So yeah, it's just a guide with which you can create things. So yeah, now JavaScript is actually one of the languages created using this guide known as ECMAScript. There are many more languages. It is going to have a similar pattern, but there are changes because it is created by different people. So but the JavaScript which is running in the browser is almost similar in all the browsers. There is something called as a JScript, which is actually created by Microsoft, which also follows the ECMAScript guide, but then it has some different usage and also has some different syntaxes. We won't be looking at that because that's not even used much. So JavaScript is our focus. Yeah. So now let's see what JavaScript can do. So first is we can build static web pages using JavaScript. So static web pages are something which you see in everyday life, like pages you visit where you don't see much interaction, just the content. Maybe you're visiting a hotel menu in your, it's not an online ordering platform, it's just a menu that you are visiting. so that it does not have much of interaction in that page. You can just check out what is in that hotel. Yeah, that is a simple example. Maybe you have a shop which does not have any online ordering, but then it just showcases what it has. So those are called as static websites because they don't have any dynamic contents. The contents do not change often you visit. So next is we can build dynamic web applications. So as I was saying, those contents in the static pages are not going to change, but in dynamic web applications, everything is going to keep changing in your every visit. So one example would be Facebook. Yeah. Every day when you visit Facebook, you are looking at different feeds in your news feed. That is because it is totally dynamic. So whatever is happening around, it's uh, taking all those feeds, and they will have some internal processing using an algorithm, uh, and yeah, that is how it is created. So those are called as dynamic web applications. So there is a there's a quite distinction between what is a website and a web application. So web application is a more complex thing, where you have much more interaction, and where you will play with the content in that website itself, where you will be able to post something, add something, or remove something. So that is what a web application is. Websites are just static, so you don't see any change in those things. Next is JavaScript not only allows us to build web pages and web applications, we can also build mobile applications. So we can build two types of them, which is cross platform and hybrid mobile applications. uh, it is not actually covered in our course, but we will tell you what are the technologies that are used for creating those applications. You will be able to do those applications if you get the basic understanding of what we are trying to teach now. Yeah. Next is it is not only in the web, which is where you are looking at something, where you are using an app. It's not only there. Also, the servers which you are trying to connect are going to uh, be or can be built using a JavaScript. We'll also talk about that later. So these are the capabilities of JavaScript, and it can do much more. It depends on your requirement. So what you need to do can be achieved using these technologies that we have. Yeah. So I'm not sure how many of you know this difference. We have two things, which is a compiler and an interpreter. So uh, this I'm talking about this in terms of the programming language that we have at hand, which is JavaScript. So we have a compiled language. C is a compiled language because what happens is when you write a program in C, it is going to take that whole code and try to compile it to a machine language. And only then, if that code is having no error, it's going to run it. Otherwise, it's going to say you that I cannot run this code because it has so many errors. But interpreted, so JavaScript is actually an interpreted language, which is quite different from compiled, where an interpreted language is run line by line without any compilation. The compilation is actually some process which is happening in the behind, but that is different. What it is going to do is it will take a line and convert it into machine code and run it right away. Unlike the compiler, which takes the whole code, validates it, and only if it's correct, it will run it. Unless the code is exact, uh, unless the code is completely right, it won't run. But in case of interpreter, maybe you have 5 lines, and one of the line is correct, it is going to run that. And if it's and on the line where it is facing an issue, it's going to stop working, and it's going to throw an error. So that's how a interpreter works. Yeah, this is something you should remember because It's not that you're learning JavaScript now, but it is not certain that in future when you are in a job you won't be using only JS. You will be switching to other languages depending on the need or depending on the requirement. Yeah. So I'm talking about one more thing, which is static versus dynamically typed language. So these things you just need to remember them as of now. You will get the understanding of it when we start doing some code. You just need to remember it for now. So we have two things about a programming language. So both of these are going to describe about a language. So now JS is a interpreted language, and it is also a dynamically typed language. So what dynamically typed means is, uh, how many of you know, have how many of you tried C programming? I'm sure you would have. Yeah, even if someone did, send me yes. Okay, okay, okay. Then I guess you understand what is a data type. So data type is where you mention something to have a type, uh, which is representing its data. Maybe it could be a int, which is representing a number. It could be a float, which is representing a number with decimal points, and it could be a character. So in those languages like C, C++, and Java, those are statically typed, which means you have to specify the type of data which you're going to store, which is actually a tedious process because it's going to take you time to build that. And also, yeah, it's definitely going to take time to build that, and you have to uh, but the good thing about it is you don't have to be much more cautious uh, when you're using a dynamically typed language, because you know what you're trying to save there. And whenever you're misusing that value, it's going to say that, hey, that's not the value that you're trying to use. Maybe you're trying to use a float, sorry, you're trying to use a decimal number, but then you are currently using an integer, which is wrong. So it's going to say throw such errors when you are misusing those values. But in case of a dynamically typed language, you are going to have values, or you're going to have variables. We'll talk about what is a variable next. Uh, so we are going to have certain things which is going to hold the values, but then you're not going to specify what they are. So la- the compiler, which is the interpreter, is going to automatically identify what is the type of value it is holding. So this is what dynamically typed means. Yeah, we'll get into that. So the last thing which I wanted to tell, there are a lot more things. Here I'm ending this talk with what are JavaScript versions. JavaScript versions are represented with the versions of the ECMAScript. So ECMAScript is the language specification. So only if the new specification is released, that language is going to get a new version. So that's how it works. And currently, I think we have ECMAScript version 11. Yeah. So how how it is set is, like, you have to say es, which is for ECMAScript, and es11. So that is the version of JavaScript which is currently in the use. So the good thing, actually, it is a very important thing to know which version of language, which version of JavaScript supports which features. So what happens is, not all the browsers will have the support for that specific feature immediately. It might be delayed in a specific browser. Let's say Chrome is someone who is continuously updating the new versions, but then not all the browsers will be doing that. So you have to keep track. You just have to have some knowledge in which these things are changing, and there are websites which will help you in doing this. But yeah, you have to know at least some main key features which will work on which browser. So maybe you are developing an application, you have used some very new feature. If you take that application and try to open it in, let's say, of course, IE is out of the picture. People have already removed it. But then, yeah, for an example, I'm taking IE, or also you can consider Edge. Edge and Chrome are much similar. I'll tell you why. But yeah, so in this, maybe if something is working in Chrome, it might not work in Edge. That's because of the version change, which is not introduced in the Edge, which is introduced in Chrome. So that is something which you should be aware of, that there is a change, and you're using, or else you're using something new. Yeah, that's about some basic things in JS. I think we should get started here. I'm opening a new tab. I think you guys remember that we were using this console. Okay, okay, yeah, we were using this console. This is called as the developer console, where you will be able to see some statements that you have written in your code in here. Let's see if this has something. Yeah, you can see it here, right? I've just opened the developer console for the meeting which we are currently in, and in this meeting you can see that there are a lot of awful stuffs printed here. We don't know what that is. This is for the purpose of the developers who have created this application, which is the WebEx Meet. So, and you also can see some errors. So the purpose of having this console is to see how the application is working. Maybe at times when you're having an issue, it is going to help you debug that issue and fix your code. So that is the purpose of a console. We have much more things here. Let me just talk about a few right now, and we'll I'll tell you what the other tabs do in the near future, because those are not mostly used, but those are very important. Let me first tell you the first four. I've told you about the console. So console is basically where you print things to see whether there is an error occurred, or uh, just a debug statement to see whether the code worked correctly, or a warning to say that you have done something which is not right, but maybe it is not causing any errors. That's where you see warnings. So this is the console. I hope you can see. And the first tab is called Elements. So Elements tab is going to show the this page's elements which they have created using HTML and CSS. So the first button which I use, I think we have used this before. When I click that, it allows us to select an element in this page. So when I click it, it's going to toggle, it's going to appear blue. And when I hover is the action of taking your mouse and placing it on any element. So when I hover on any of the element, you can see that element is highlighted, and also it is being navigated in the Elements tab. So when I navigate here, I'm going to see that it is going to the specific place in this Elements tab. Yeah, so when I click on that element, this is going to toggle back, but it just selects that element. So sorry. Yeah, so this is the use of Elements panel. It allows you to view the whole HTML of this page, and also you can view its properties. We can see all the attributes and classes here, and also the styles here on the right. I hope you can see. So this is the use of elements panel. Once we are building an application, you will get to know more about how to use these things. So we saw about console. So you can see that this is a warning. That's why the color is yellow. Yeah. Next, we have the sources panel. So in the sources tab, what we can see is we will see the code which is being run right now. So we have the file structure, how we would do in the VS Code. We were working using the VS Code, right? We had the file structure on the left. We have an explorer. When we click that, we can see the whole file structure of our code. And yeah, this is something similar to that, where you will be able to see what code is being used here. I think we have something here. Yeah, this is not the exact code. Probably here. Yeah. So this is actually the main code that is being used. It also has different contents that are used in this page. Yeah. So yeah. So this is where you will be able to navigate through the file structure uh, of this web page. So that is the purpose of sources panel. It is just going to show you the source of the code which is being run. And the fourth one is network. So network is like one of the most important tabs. You will be definitely coming here if you're working on JS. What it does is, so now we are actually I'm talking and also I'm sharing screen. So everything I'm doing right now is being sent to you, and how it is being sent is actually you can see that from this network tab. It has to be either here. Okay, I think. Okay, it seems to be sending something here. I think it's some metrics. They also have some metrics. Yeah. So only the people who have created this knows what exactly they do. But then we will be able to see this because we are having access to the browser and we are the one who's making any request. So this is what a request is. So you send something and you can click on this. So this is the URL to which a request is being sent. So this is actually the URL which you send the request. So it's actually called a request, and you send a request to there and you view the page here. So when you send request to the specific URL, it's going to throw you a page, but that is not always throw you an HTML page. But that is not always the case. You will be receiving various types of things in the response, not only HTML content. So in this case, yeah, it's going to be just a text. We are getting this text called as success, but this is not something relevant to what we are doing right now. So I think, yeah, these are the four panels which we should know to work. So I think let's get started. So first, we saw that there were a lot of statements in the code in this console. So how to create those in your code is the starting point. So I think everyone knows the starting point for a language is hello world. So I'm going to start with the same. So, yeah. So how you can do that is type console.log, and you're going to open a parenthesis. So I will talk about what that is in some time. So what we are trying to do is we are calling this so-called a function, a logging function, which is going to throw something out in this console. So the good thing about JS is you can just directly run your code in this console itself whenever needed. So it also makes the debugging much easier. So here I'm going to type something, the usual hello world example. So when I type it and press enter, it's going to print that here. So this is actually the statement which we saw earlier, like a similar statement which we saw earlier, where you got a lot of. Let me close this. And go somewhere. Yeah, I have visited this page. Okay, I'm not sure if this page is going to contain something useful. Okay, let me go back here. So yeah, so what I've done is I've just printed out something in the console, so I can do the same from using the code. Here I'm showing it in the console, but then you will be able to do the same in the code itself. So now let's create a HTML file and try to do the same. I'm going to create a file called index.html. I'm going to type HTML:5, which is going to give me the boilerplate code, and going to give the title as JavaScript. And here, so we don't have anything to type in the body. So we were previously using style as a tag. We use style from a different file, also from a tag, also in inline where you specify it directly on the tag itself. In similar way, I can use a script tag. So script, you can put script and enter. It's going to use the emet abbreviation and create a tag structure. And inside script is where you will write the JavaScript code when it comes to browser. Yeah. So this is a page. I'm not going to have, let's say, only have a header here. In this header, I'm just going to say JavaScript. Yeah. So I'm going to run it using live server. Yeah, I run it. Yeah, you can see this here, and I'm going to open the console. Favorite. Okay, it searches for a favorite icon. Okay, I'm refreshing it. Yeah, you can see there's nothing printed out here. So how you can print out something is, after introducing this script tag, you can type console.log here instead of doing it in the browser. So anything that you do in the browser is going to be temporary. That's not your actual code. Even if you will be able to modify the code that you see in the browser there itself, but it's not going to be permanent. It's just temporary. When you refresh the page, it's going to go away. So I'm typing console.log here, putting this into hello world, saving it, and going back to the browser. So since I have the live server running, it immediately refreshed the page automatically when I made the change to that file. And you can see we are having this text called hello world printed out here. And you also see from where it is getting printed. So you can see that from the line index.html colon 53 is the line number. So it should be, yeah, that is from where this code is getting printed. So you can see, I told you, right, this will be viewable from the browser itself. So yeah, this is how you will view it from the browser. And instead of hello world, I can type hello, and when I save it, yeah, you will be, since the page refreshes automatically, you can see it hello. So now what we have done is we have printed out this statement called as hello in the console. Let me start to break it down a bit. First, also let me introduce you to comments. In JavaScript, you can do comments in two ways. One is by using two forward slashes. That line is committed. You can see it's grayed out. When I save it and go to the browser, it's not going to have anything because that line is not actually working. But it is present in that code, but it won't work because it is commented out. So and I go back here, and yeah, so this is one way of commenting, but this works only for a single line. If I type a different line here, line, and I type a different line here, it's not going to comment this line. It's because the effect for forward slash in the beginning is only for that specific line. So if you want to comment multiple lines, what you can do is, yeah, you can either put forward slash on all the lines that you want to comment, or else you can do forward slash an asterisk and end it wherever you want. So I'm ending it down here because it also covers the second line. So now what happened is all the four lines are commented, but then we don't have any executable statements in these lines. So this is how you comment multiple lines. It's always good to use the shortcut. I hope you remember the shortcut is control forward slash in Windows and command forward slash in Mac. So I'm doing that right now. Yeah, when I press command forward slash, it's actually adding comments to each line. So yeah, I'm going to remove this. I'm saving it. We have two console statements here. Now it's going to print these in different lines. Yeah, here you can see first we have the first statement executed, and secondly we have this second console log which we have introduced as executed. So this is how you run JavaScript in the browser. So let's go deep into it. Firstly, we will talk about data types. So any language that you're using is definitely going to contain data types because those are the core. So you have to tell them how to store a data. So we have multiple types of data, but it should at least know what data it is because you will be performing multiple operations based on the data it is holding. So let's say maybe you are having a number. So if there is a number, let's say you have a value of pi, so it's going to contain hundreds of digits. I think it's infinite. Let's say hundreds of digits after the decimal point. What if you want to round it down to two values? So in that case, if it identifies that the value is a float, it gives you an option to fix the number of characters after number of digits after the decimal point. So that is a good thing to know about having a data type. So let's first talk about a string, which we already saw. Let me tell about it. So this is actually a string. So string is just sequence of characters, which is enclosed inside a double quote or single quote or a backtick. So inside console log, instead of using, I've used a double quote here. Instead of using a double quote, we can also use a single quote to wrap the text. And I'm typing, this is under a single quote. So it should work perfectly fine. Okay, so what happened here is I'm using a formatter. It's called Prettier. This is one of the mostly used. You can install it from the extensions here. When I type this icon is called the extensions, and I type Prettier, you will be able to see this extension called code formatter. You can install it. It's going to format your code. It's just going to, when you type your code, it's going to look messy because it's not going to be small. So it is going to contain multiple lines. So by using a formatter, you will be able to clean the appearance of the code. So that is the use of a formatter. So it's actually automatically formatting and converting this single quote into double quote. Let me show that in the browser itself. Yeah, you can see we see the text here. So now I'm going to type it in single quote. Let's say in single quote. When I press enter, yeah, it will work same as how it worked in the double quotes. Why I'm stressing about this point is it is different in Java and C, C++, because those languages does not support strings using a single quote. Only if you use double quotes it will work. For single quote it won't work. So but in JS it's you can use anything. Either it can be a single quote, double quote, or we have one more thing called as a backtick. Backtick is actually the symbol uh, which is on the same key as the tilde. To be precise, it will be above the tab key on your keyboard. Yeah, I'm pressing it. Yeah. So if you press shift and press, yeah, right. If you click shift and press it, it's going to print out the tilde symbol. But without shift, it's going to print the backtick. This is called as backtick. So and this has a very good purpose in JS. We will get to know about that later. Yeah, one simple thing it can also do is so we have the string, but then you cannot write it in multiple lines. Going to show me that it's, let me close this. Yeah, you cannot write it in multiple lines. It's going to show me that it is an error. So what we can do here is, that is where the backtick comes in. It is an option introduced to write strings in multiple lines. That is one of the options which is provided with this backtick. Now if I do the same here, it's going to work. I can type anything here. Copy it, second line. It's going to work, and I have saved it, and you will be able to see that in the exact format of how you have written it there. So yeah, that is the use of backticks. So this is how you represent a string. So a string is just a combination of multiple characters. So these characters can be anything. It can be a number, it can be a symbol, or anything. So it doesn't matter. Uh, if it is covered using a quote, it's going to be a string. So that's how it is treated. So what we have done here is, we have just given the string to a function. So a function is something which you can call and ask it to do a certain operation. In our case, this function is going to print the things out in this console. So that is the purpose of this function. So we will be writing our own functions. We'll get there. Yeah, as of now, so this is a function. And how you can call a function. So function is a piece of code which you write somewhere, and it can be called. So the purpose of writing function is basically reusability. Okay, so we have this log which is a function, and it could be referred as method. I will tell you why. Actually that is the correct term, but we'll discuss that later. For the simplicity sake, I'm keeping it as a function. Yeah, here I'm passing something, passing a string inside this function. You can also pass a number here. So first I think this is enough for the string. Let's talk about number. Yeah, so I'm using the same console log statement. So instead of passing a string, you can even pass a number here. I type a number, save it. So this is a regular number. When I save it and go back to the screen, you will be able to see that the number is printed here, and you can see that it has a color of violet. So there is this difference which this console allows us to see, where the numbers will be in in this color, as a violet, and the text will be white. So if I wrap the same number inside the code, it's going to appear white. You can see that here. Yeah. So it is just showing us a differentiation, that the type of data that is provided inside this log function is a number. Yeah. When I save it, yeah, you will be see that difference here. So remembering this is going to help you somewhere, because at times you'll be able to see that you are facing some issues with this type mismatch. So yeah, we have this number. we have just logged out this number into the screen. So it can be, so numbers can be given in any way. It could be minus 10, or it could be 5.789, let's say, and saving it. So this is going to give us all these values exactly. Yeah. So it is supporting all negative numbers, positive numbers, and also decimal numbers. Quite often you will need something to identify what the type of value is. Okay, let's get into that later. So first we have string, then we have numbers. The third type would be a boolean. The boolean is just a true or false value. So I can type console.log, it could be true, and saving it, and I go back to the screen. Yeah, I'll be able to see it's true. So true. So there are only, yeah, two values. These are only considered as booleans. So true and false. Saving it. Yeah, only these two are considered as boolean values. So one important thing about a programming language is there are specific keywords that are uh, restricted for that language's use itself. Uh, from our next topic, you will be get to know how that restriction is should be kept in mind, because you won't be able to do certain things since there is a restriction. So yeah, we have boolean. Next we will be getting into the topic. These are the basic things these are the basics. We have much more to learn in terms of data types. So we will get into it once we understand some uh, other fundamentals. I'm going to show you something. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So we have a box here. I'm just going to give you an analogy of the topic which we are discussing now, which is the variables. So variables are something which you always use in your code. Variable is just a box which is going to contain a value. So it can be anything. So next is, yeah, we have the value here. So what we would do is we take that value, drop it into that specific variable, and so now this box is going to contain that value. So
Basultan, in case if the meet ends, please join the same meet and start the new meeting.
yeah, sure. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, just stop in the middle. Don't send it in chat. Unmute yourself and talk. If you don't talk, you won't be getting a job. You have to talk at some places, right? So yeah, we have a box, so we call it as a variable, and this variable is going to hold a value. So I'm just trying to represent it in a different way. So when I go, yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, so let's create a variable here. So I can tell you what will be the use of that variable. Let's first look into what we can do with these things. So first we have a number, and I'm going to, yeah, let's first type it directly. I'm going to type 1 plus 2. So you can perform any kind of math operations in your languages. All the primary arithmetic operations can be done in any programming language. So here, what I'm doing is I'm doing 1 plus 2, an addition, 5 into 7, and yeah, it can be anything. 9 minus 2. Perform all sort of operations. Let's not leave 0 to 2. Let's say 2, right? Yeah. So we can do all basic arithmetic operations. We can do much more than this, but those will not be like directly. So yeah, as of now, this is what we will be able to do. So here I'm just adding lines of code here, but it's not going to do anything because you won't be able to see that here because we did not use console log to print them. So those lines are executed, but